It is a sound you would know anywhere in the dark. That low, rhythmic heaving. Herk, herk, herk. You're on the couch. The TV is low, and across the room your cat has gone suddenly still. Her back arches. Her sides pump like a little bellows. Her mouth opens, and that awful, wet, retching sound fills the quiet room. And your stomach drops, because you know exactly what's coming next. The frantic scramble as she tries to make it off the rug. The strange silence. And then that final, gagging heave. You rush over. You put your hand on her back, and you can feel it. The whole body clenching, working, straining. Her ears are pinned. Her eyes are half shut and glassy. And when it's finally over, she just stands there, sides trembling, looking a little humiliated and a lot exhausted. Sometimes something comes up, and sometimes, and this is the part that scares you, nothing comes up at all. Just the heaving, over and over, for nothing. And you clean it up, again, and you wonder, is this normal? Should it be happening this much? Is she in pain? You love this little creature more than you can say, and watching her hunched over on the floor like that, struggling, makes you feel completely helpless. You are not helpless, my friend, and you are not a bad pet parent. You are a worried one, and that worry is exactly why you're the right person to be watching this. Because I need you to hear something. That hairball is not just a gross little inconvenience you sweep up and forget about. It's a symptom, and the way most of us have been taught to deal with it is, frankly, part of the problem. Let's talk about the enemy here. Walk down the pet aisle and you'll see them. Those bright, sticky hairball control gels and pastes in a tube. Pet parents squeeze them out and their cats lick them right up, no problem, and they think, great, solved it. But have you ever actually read the back of that tube? The main ingredient in so many of them is petrolatum. That's petroleum jelly. That's a byproduct of processing crude oil, my friends. We are asking our cats to eat a laxative made from petroleum, day after day, and here's the real trouble. That mineral oil can actually block your cat from absorbing the fat-soluble vitamins she needs, vitamins A, D, and E, the very nutrients that keep her skin healthy and her coat strong. So the cure can quietly make the coat worse, which means more shedding, which means more hair swallowed, which means more hairballs. Around and around it goes. And then there's the vet, who, understandably, wants to run a $200 workup every time she vomits. And sometimes that's truly necessary. I'll be very clear about that later. But for the everyday, garden variety hairball, there's a gentler way. But what if I told you that the single most effective tool for stopping painful hairball buildup isn't in a tube at the pet store at all? What if I told you it's a simple, whole food treat you can give your cat just once a week? Something you very likely already have in your kitchen right now, that works with her body instead of against it, to move that hair through gently and safely, from the inside out. If you saw the thumbnail of this video, you saw the promise. That little dish, that one simple ingredient, that's not a gimmick, my friends. That is the whole secret. The answer to those miserable 2 a.m. heaving sessions is not hiding at the pharmacy or behind a specialist's counter. It is sitting in your kitchen pantry and your refrigerator. And by the time we're done today, you're going to know exactly what that weekly treat is, exactly how much to give, exactly how to serve it, and, just as important, how to do it safely, so you don't trade one problem for another. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Tony Lee, your neighborhood veterinarian, and welcome back to the channel. I want to tell you about a cat named Marmalade. Big orange tabby, gorgeous long coat, the personality of a grumpy old king. His mom brought him in because he'd been heaving 3-4 times a week, sometimes bringing up a hairball the size of my thumb, sometimes bringing up nothing at all, just retching and retching. She was beside herself. She'd tried 2 different paste products from the store and he was no better. And when we sat down and made just a few small changes, a weekly treat, a little more water, 5 minutes of a certain kind of brushing, within a month, the heaving had dropped to maybe once every couple of weeks. His mom cried, honestly, happy tears, because she finally felt like she wasn't watching him suffer anymore. And here's the statistic I want to sit heavy with you for a second. Long-haired cats can swallow a truly enormous amount of hair. Some estimates suggest that during heavy shedding and grooming seasons, as much as 2/3 of the hair your cat sheds ends up swallowed, going straight into her stomach. 2/3. That's how good cats are at grooming, and that's how much material their little digestive systems have to deal with. And in the worst cases, and I never say this to scare you, only to be honest with you, a hairball can grow so large it forms a blockage in the stomach or intestines that no amount of heaving can move. That's called a trichobezoar, which is just the fancy medical word for a matted mass of hair. And when one gets stuck, it becomes a life-threatening emergency that can require surgery. So this thing we joke about, this just a hairball thing, it lives on a spectrum, and the far end of that spectrum is deadly serious. So today, we are not doing a quick tip. Today is a complete masterclass on stopping painful hairball buildup at the root. Here's our roadmap. In Chapter 1, we're going to talk about immediate relief, the one weekly treat from the title, what it is and how it works. In Chapter 2, we add the second half of that treat, the fiber piece, because the treat has two parts, and most people only know one. Chapter 3 is all about water, because a dehydrated hairball is a dangerous hairball. Chapter 4 is the brush, the 5-minute habit that stops the problem before it ever reaches her stomach. Chapter 5, and this one's important, is the root cause hiding in her food bowl. And Chapter 6 is your reality check chapter, where I'll stop you from making a very common, very messy mistake. So do me a favor right now. Grab a pen and a notebook, because I'm going to give you exact amounts, and you'll want to write them down so you get this right. And if you find this helpful in the next few minutes, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss one of these. All right? Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The weekly treat itself, and it is pumpkin. Now, but what if the problem is that the hair is just sitting in her stomach, clumping, with nothing to move it along? Here's the simple science. A hairball forms because hair is not digestible. Your cat swallows it during grooming, it collects in the stomach, and normally small amounts pass through into the litter box without any fuss. The trouble starts when there's too much hair and not enough movement. The hair mats together into a wet, dense clump that's too big to pass forward into the intestines, so the only way out is back up. That's the heaving. Plain canned pumpkin is the answer, and here's why it's so beautiful. Pumpkin is loaded with soluble fiber. That's the kind of fiber that soaks up water and turns into a soft, slippery gel inside the digestive tract. That gel does two wonderful things. It gives the stomach contents bulk, which tells the gut, hey, it's time to move things along, and it coats and lubricates that hair so it slides through instead of clumping. It gently escorts the hair out the back door, the natural way, into the litter box, from the inside out, instead of forcing it back up. Here's the exact how-to, and please write this down. You want 100% plain canned pumpkin, not pumpkin pie filling. I cannot say that loudly enough. Pie filling is packed with sugar and spices like nutmeg, and nutmeg is actually toxic to cats. Just plain pumpkin, one single ingredient on the label. For an average-sized cat, you give 1 to 2 teaspoons, mixed into her wet food, once or twice a week. That's it. A small cat, closer to 1 teaspoon. A big fellow like marmalade, up to 2. And here's your first vet warning, flagged nice and clear. More is not better. Pumpkin is a fiber, and if you dump a giant spoonful in there thinking you'll fix everything faster, you will get loose stool, or the opposite, and a very unhappy cat. Start with 1 teaspoon and see how she does. And a leftover tip, a can of pumpkin goes bad in the fridge in about a week, so freeze the rest in an ice cube tray. 1 cube per serving, and you've got weeks of treats ready to go. Now, that handles the moving. But what if the fiber alone isn't quite enough for your heavy shedder? This brings me to Chapter 2. Chapter 2. The lubrication partner, a tiny bit of healthy oil, and for some cats, a pinch of psyllium. But Dr. Tony, you might be saying, isn't fiber enough? For a lot of cats, yes. But for your serious, long-haired, heavy-shedding cats, fiber moves the hair, and a little healthy fat helps it slide. Here's the mechanism in plain words. A small amount of the right oil coats the hair mass and lubricates the gut wall, so everything glides more smoothly. And unlike that petroleum paste we talked about, a food-based oil actually nourishes her skin and coat while it works, which, remember, means less shedding down the line. The solution is a tiny drizzle of plain fish oil, or a little canned pumpkin's natural moisture, paired with the wet food we'll talk about later. For the oil, the exact amount is small, about a quarter teaspoon of a cat-appropriate fish oil, 2 to 3 times a week, right on the food. That's all. For the psyllium husk, if your vet gives you the nod, we're talking a tiny pinch, about 1/8 of a teaspoon, well mixed into wet food. And here is a critical vet warning, and I want your full attention. If you use psyllium, you must make sure your cat is drinking plenty of water, which is exactly why Chapter 3 exists. Psyllium without enough water can actually make a blockage worse, not better, because it swells. So psyllium and water go together, always, never one without the other. And please, no olive oil or butter dumped in the bowl thinking oil is oil. Too much fat, too suddenly, can trigger a painful inflammation of the pancreas, called pancreatitis. Small amounts. The right oils. That's the game. We're covering a lot. Go ahead and grab a sip of water yourself, because this next part is genuinely vital, and it's the piece almost everybody forgets. Chapter 3. Water. Because a dry hairball is a dangerous hairball. But what if you're doing the pumpkin, you're doing everything right, and she's still struggling? 9 times out of 10, my friends, the missing piece is water. Here's the simple science, and it's the whole ball game. Fiber only works if there's water for it to absorb. Remember that soft, slippery gel we talked about? No water, no gel. Instead, you get a dry, packed-down mass that's even harder to pass. And here's the cruel trick of nature. Cats evolved from desert animals, so they have a naturally low thirst drive. Your cat is almost always a little dehydrated and doesn't even feel thirsty about it. That's not her fault, and it's not yours. It's just her wiring. So we outsmart the wiring. Solution number 1. A cat water fountain. Cats are drawn to moving water. It's an instinct. Running water reads as fresh and safe. And pet parents tell me all the time they're shocked how much more their cat drinks the day the fountain comes out. Solution number 2, and this one costs you nothing. Add water directly to her food. Stir a tablespoon or 2 of warm water into her wet food and turn it into a kind of gravy or soup. Warm it just slightly and it releases the aroma, and most cats slurp it right up. Vet warning here, gentle but real. If your cat suddenly starts drinking a lot more water on her own without you changing a thing, that's not a win, that's a red flag. Sudden excessive thirst can be an early sign of kidney disease, diabetes, or an overactive thyroid, and that deserves a real vet visit. We want to gently encourage water. We do not want to see the faucet suddenly become her favorite place in the world overnight. Now, everything so far deals with hair that's already been swallowed. But what if we could stop most of it from ever reaching her stomach in the first place? That brings me to Chapter 4. Chapter 4, the 5-minute brush. Prevention you can feel good about. But what if the real fix isn't inside her at all? Here's the honest truth, my friends. The very best hairball remedy in the entire world is the hair that never gets swallowed. Every loose hair you capture in a brush is a hair that does not go into her mouth, does not clump in her stomach, and does not come heaving back up onto your rug at 2 a.m. It's that simple. The mechanism isn't fancy, it's just math. Less hair swallowed equals fewer hairballs. Full stop. Here's the exact how-to. For a short-haired cat, a soft rubber brush or a grooming glove, 2 to 3 times a week, 5 minutes a session. For a long-haired cat, you'll want a stainless steel comb and possibly a de-shedding tool, and you're aiming for a few minutes every single day, especially in spring and fall when they blow their coats. Follow the direction of the hair growth. Be gentle over the belly and the back legs where the skin is sensitive, and here's a professional vet tip. End every session with something she loves, a treat or a chin scratch, so she starts to see the brush as the best part of her day instead of a wrestling match. Vet warning, do not force it. If your cat has mats, especially close to the skin, do not go hacking at them with scissors. I have stitched up far too many cats whose loving owners accidentally cut the skin, because a cat's skin is thin and it tents right up under a mat. Mats near the skin are a job for clippers, or a groomer, or your vet. And if brushing reveals scabs, bald patches, or she flinches in pain, that's not just grooming anymore. That's a skin issue that needs a look. We are making incredible progress, but we've been treating and preventing. Now let's go all the way down to the root. This brings me to Chapter 5. Chapter 5, the the root cause hiding in her food bowl. But what if I told you the reason she's shedding so much, grooming so much, and building so many hairballs in the first place could be sitting